All right, Nick. So today
Yeah,
we're going to be talking about "Can You Ever Forgive Me?" A
maybe.
film about a literary forger, which,
Yeah,
as creators, we know is a very no-no subject. Forgery,
there's a little
copying.
bit of a sexiness to it because sometimes forgers are really good craftsmen,
hmm
but it's a fraud. But something like you forge money, a counterfeiter, but is actually illegal and you're a fraud. You're not making genuine work, but somehow there is a skill to it that we kind of
Yeah, and I
get.
think that's one of the beautiful things about "Can You Ever Forgive Me?" that we're going to break down today is very much how it tells you it's wrong,
Yeah,
but it kind of gives you this flair as if you believe for 106 minutes that it's right. You know?
yeah. It makes him almost. Can you forgive me? Well, we're gonna see.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see today as we break it down. So, Can You Ever Forgive Me from director Marielle Heller? We're talking about it today on Kyle and Nick on Film, so stay tuned.
All right, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and with me is Kyle from the Almighty Goat Man Reviews.
GoatFilmReviews.com, but you can follow me online at Almighty Goat Man.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about Melissa McCarthy starring in 2018 Can You Ever Forgive Me, based on a true story of writer biographer Lee Israel and her accounts of forging letters of well-known famous people, writers, authors, and actresses. In fact, that's what the nice thing about this is. Actually a little homage to the old-fashioned movies, if you know about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so Melissa McCarthy is our lead, of course, as Lee Israel. Richard E. Grant plays her, I guess, her confidant, her friend. There's like a loose friendship there at Jack Hawk. I think just going into the story right here that Lee has been a less than successful biographer.
That's a nice way to put it.
Really, yeah, like trying to kind of like get
Get
the work going on herself again, but she can't. She's not a very likable person.
No, and the
she
funny
doesn't
thing
have
is
friends in
she's
the
aware of
business.
that. That's
Yeah.
that makes a nice thing, but she's aware of it. But she doesn't know how to have the really school tools to break up.
Yeah,
Kind of.
and more than anything, her struggle is less of a creative one and more of a financial one. She has a sick cat; she can't afford to pay her rent, which she's behind months on. She's drinking herself into an early grave. Like she's got every single financial issue that you can have.
So
that is
she's
creating
drowning.
worse and worse.
Yeah.
And she, instead of choosing to really embrace her creativity, she doesn't have the confidence that she can do something other than creating forged versions of letters from famous people.
Yeah, she's drowning, and in fact, she's helping herself by drowning in alcohol. And then, and in the lowly parts of life, you meet other lowly points of life, which is and the writer Ed Hawk, and they just mutually, of course, meet in a bar.
Yep.
And they start having a conversation. And it's interesting to know that sometimes, and I like the light little details of alcoholism, of always talking about the past, always where's the next drink, always the illusion that it's a grand party that they're experiencing, where it looks absolutely drab.
Yeah, the alcohol is really a bandage, a super adhesive one that kind of just ties you to the people around you, ties you to the past, where you can focus on the situations in your life that were better than the ones you're in right now.
Outsider viewers, we'll see it and we're like, this looks pathetic, but to them, this is ordinary. This is enjoyment, and this is
It's the only way to get by.
Yes.
For her, and I think that they each have their vices, and I love the relationship between McCarthy and Grant in the film.
Yeah, it's very
I think
plausible.
they both deserved Oscars. I was really pushing for this movie when it came out because I felt that they're both characters were so well crafted, so wonderful, so fun to follow around, and they really kind of strike that interesting lesson that I've learned in the past few years, which is that your characters don't have to be likable as long as they're interesting. You can create interest in your characters that makes up for a lot of their faults, because really these are two unlikable people doing unlikable things to each other and the people around them, and it's done in a way that makes you still invested in what's going on.
And there's a play on the irony of Melissa McCarthy objecting to his selling drugs for getting by, where she's doing seedly stuff as well, but she objects to him. And certainly she's a forger, but she has this very sacred ground that you don't contaminate of all these people that she's actually admires, even though she's forging all their stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of this she refused to see what she's doing to their legacy. And in fact, Noel Coward's biography contains 2 letters in the first printing from the Israel that were taken out of the second printing. Like, to the point where she sees this as an art. Like I'm helping their legacy when in all fairness, she is ruining their legacy. She is ruining, like, even the stuff that they did create, even the things that they did do, because there's that question of who created it then. There's that question of who does it belong to.
It's a very well played that a lot of people who deal with addictions and drownings of how somehow they think they can't ever subscribe that they're creating damage.
Yes. It's all done in the name of help, and then it's all done for helping me because I need it right now.
Yeah. Can I get into the references, because a lot of, if you love old movies as much as I do, there's a lot of references to the people that she forward, and Kyle mentioned Noel Coward, who was a successful playwright, and one of his most popular plays was Private Lives, which was a smash hit in 1930 with Norma Shear, and as well as Edna Ferber, who wrote the screenplays for movies like, wrote the books that turned into movies, Giant, Cimarron, and then one of her famous ones was Fanny Bryce, who was a vaudeville character who she played like a baby child in vaudeville, and there was a film musical called Funny Girl based on Fanny Bryce, played by Barbra Streisand. So a lot of others, and then are famous like Dorothy Parker, Louise Brooks, who was a famous actress who actually, it's funny that the reference, I don't know if it's actually true that she used, but Louise Brooks had later in her career had a bout with alcoholism and depression, and her life went into a tailspin as much as Lee Israel's did. It's almost running parallel. And the funny thing about Louise Brooks is she hanged around with William Randolph Hearst's social circle, which William Randolph Hearst is Citizen Kane is based off of.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it too, these people that she's idolizing, that she's writing about, have struggled with similar things. They've got elements of her soul in it too, and even going as far as to her Estee Lauder biography that she rushed out, she was actually asked, try to be paid off by Estee Lauder not to publish a biography about her because she was working on herself, and so she rushed this biography through to get it published. And again, like in a way where she feels like she's honoring these people, but she's really losing it. Like she's really losing their respect and losing the respect in the community that she has. I mean, we see her go to that party, and does she talk to anyone?
No, right.
She just circulates, drinks a little bit, and then gets out.
So there's a little divorce of you understand that you're not really helping your problem, but you don't see how you can fix it. Rather
than... And there's that element that I would liken to almost like similar to how the Safdie brothers have told their stories, where like these people are given opportunities to make the right call and they keep sinking further. Definitely different stylistically.
Very much like Uncut Gems. Times.
And as she has this opportunity where, you know, her name is starting to get out there amongst people like that she might be fraudulent, she might be involved in fraudulent work, then she chooses to involve Jack. Instead of just righting the ship and maybe just getting out of there before it gets too hot, she chooses to continue to sink herself lower. And drown. You said it right, drown.
The nice point of this is the FBI investigation is kind of very much a backdrop, almost ghostly, almost very vagrant, very far away. Which a lot of movies, when there's FBI investigation, they almost cut into the investigation. You have a couple characters and their tropes and their suits and ties, and they go on to investigate. And here, I think it's played marvelously. That it's very backdropped.
Yeah, it's all about how the characters are doing this themselves. Yeah. And I think because in this way too, it's not making the FBI look like the bad guys. You know, it's not making them the bad guys because they're against our protagonist.
But it's almost like a kernel in her mind as she goes. This is going on, and rather than us as the viewers bring it brought in the forefront of their investigation, we see it from her point of view. That little kernels of the SBI is on you.
Yeah, and I like that though, because it is different than what we've seen before.
Right.
But as she says even later on in the film, I wasn't questioning whether or not what I was doing was wrong. I was just questioning if I would get caught. And I think like there's a lot to what she says near the end of the film as things get closer and closer to exploding upon her. She's less focused on what she's doing and the legitimacy of it, and more interested in just, how can I keep this ruse going?
Yeah. One of the nice things is the cinematography here is very Brandon Trost, I believe.
Yep.
Did it very well of making it look drab, constantly drab earth tones. There's no really bright sense to this ever emerging. I think the only time you ever seen it bright is when she goes into her agent's party, and it looks inviting, looks fun, but to her it just seems repulsive.
Yeah. She's comfortable with it. She lives in a dirty home, as we see during one really not so fun to watch sequence. But she's comfortable with her drab. She's comfortable with her vices, and the way that the production design aids that. It really feels like a time capsule kind of a film. The cinematography feels like it's early 90s. The editing feels like that. The costume design is amazing in this film.
Yeah, very late 80s. They hit it on a late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I think it's a film where if you didn't have the title card with the date, you could ask what year it was, and people would be able to peg it.
I
pretty
think that's
close.
refreshing that they didn't have to hold up a cue card, May 1989. We get that all the time, and we can see it visually through their great art direction and setup that they did. Marvelous.
Yeah,
we know
absolutely.
the timepieces.
This film also for Marielle Heller, she was able to take over because Ben Falcone, who is Melissa McCarthy's husband, who's directed her in films like Tammy,
Yes,
and a few other of her like not so great comedies. He actually stepped away from the film, was going to direct it. Marielle Heller took over, and I think this has really gotten her as a female director a really unique lens that she puts on the film. She really adds her own spin to it, and I think again maybe not including the FBI is something that her new voice kind of does. Is she focuses on how this is all affecting Lee and how Lee is affecting everyone else.
Yeah.
Everything kind of goes through these characters. Marielle Heller just recently did A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the Tom Hanks starring film from last year as well. One of my top 10 of the
which
year.
is a nice. I think there's similarities between that movie and the recent one with the Fred Rogers is basically two people.
Yep, it's all about these. It's about relationships, and I think it's about. Nice thing is the leads in both of these films are not romantic relationships.
No,
It's
but they're
not
tangled,
focused on that.
right?
Yeah, there's an affection, there's a care, but it's not like a forced romanticism. And I like that about Heller because the assumption, over the past couple of decades that people have put on female directors is that they're all going to direct romance films, they're all going to direct love stories, and I like having her pushing forward with a story about people and connections, and I think that's really strong.
One of the big minuses I have is just not a big fan of the title. I think they should have come up with a little bit of something a little more creative that would a little be appetizing.
Yeah, I think it's why the
I
film
think there's a
suffered.
minus for a lot of people with staying away from this movie. Even though if you love old movies and you love, like if you watch Turner Classic Films and stuff, you appreciate the value of the name dropping of all the playwrights and authors and actresses that they mentioned in the movie. The other thing is it's a little long. And there's a problem here because you don't really want to cut. These are phenomenal performances. That you just don't want to it's hard to. I understand when you're like, I don't want to cut this. This is really good. I mean, it drags on when she comes back home.
I see
in that scene, and that scene lasts a little bit longer, but it's a phenomenal performance.
That's maybe the only scene I would push to cut if I had to, but it's one that really does add so much to the character that you don't want to, and it's kind of
it's one of those. It's a double-edged sword. You don't want to cut to, but because it's really good material.
Yes,
but it adds to the length of the movie that seems unnecessary.
Yeah, and the film itself wasn't extremely profitable. Didn't really explode that much. And I agree with you. I think the title hit that pretty hard. I think the poster wasn't very strong. I don't think the trailer really.
I think
brought
we mentioned the trailer was awful.
This was a word of mouth movie, really, and the only reason I saw it was because I had someone else tell me you have to see this movie, not go see it. You have to see it. And then when I saw it, I told someone else you have to see this movie. Yeah. I think. It's an issue because this film needed to get some more space, because I do think Heller is a great director. I really want to see what she continues to do.
There's phenomenal things, and I think the cinematography with Brandon Trost is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, final thoughts. I mean, there's definitely a recommendation for me. I love the performances from McCarthy. I love E. Grant, especially Grant's ability to act like an alcoholic. He's allergic to alcohol, the actor. So, being able to perform as an alcoholic is a pretty strong thing to do. But I really enjoyed the two characters, and I like that we get to see a film that's not necessarily telling us to like these people. It's more just telling us to learn their story, learn their tale, and that really, really got me right.
Make them, even though they're kind of repulsive, that make them enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you appreciate it if you like old movies. You love the name drops, and maybe it starts a spark of going down the rabbit hole of investigating old movies and playwrights, and learning to discover the old Hollywood, the old golden age that they reference a lot in this movie.
Yep. Doesn't give a really good shine to Tom Clancy, though. They don't really shine too well to him in the film.
I think Tom Clancy would kind of appreciate it.
Yeah, that's probably fair. That's fair. Fair enough. But it's something you'd recommend after seeing it. This is your first time?
Yes, it was fresh. Yes, yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, now we want to know what you guys think. Have you seen Can You Ever Forgive Me? Got to recommend it. Got to check it out. Let us know what you thought about the film. If you haven't, go see it, then come back. Don't forget to give us a like, too, as well. And if you haven't checked out the Patreon, please go to patreon.com/KyleNickOnFilm. We got a link down there in the description, and you can help actually pick films with us that we'll be using in future episodes of Kyle and Nick on Film. If you can't give with the Patreon, please just share the video, like, subscribe, get involved in the conversation. That's really our favorite part about doing this.
We'd like to hear from you.
Absolutely. So there you guys have it, everybody. My name is Kyle Goth. You can find all my film reviews on goatfilmreviews.com. With me as always is...
I'm Nick, and the host of the St. Paul Filmcast, a podcast where we interview local independent filmmakers from the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul area.
All right, thank you guys so much for joining us. Please forgive us if we didn't talk about this film even more than we should. But please let us know what your thoughts on it as well. We'll see you next time, okay?